I stood there, the harsh words of my mother-in-law echoing around the small room, making me feel invisible and insignificant. She criticized me harshly, saying that with her, my husband Bobby, and his sister in the house, they didn't need me. She remarked disdainfully on my apparent perpetual unhappiness, labeling me as nothing more than a burden. My sister-in-law, who seldom contributed to any household tasks, chimed in with evident scorn, reinforcing the hurtful sentiment. Just as I was about to defend myself, Bobby joined in, siding with his mother and sister. He coldly stated that they didn't need a wife who struggled with managing both work and household chores, especially since they had a younger, more efficient part-time helper. Bobby's words struck deep as they continued their barrage of criticism, labeling me a failure, my hands clenched into fists, a storm of anger brewing within. Despite everything I had given and all that they had taken, they dared to dismiss me so easily. A resolve hardened within me. They would see the consequences of their actions, I silently vowed. Yet outwardly, I maintained a calm demeanor, staring back at the trio with a neutral expression. "Fine," I finally spoke, my voice steady. "I'll leave, but remember, the downfall of this family begins now. I'm Charlotte, 35 years old, a dedicated working wife. Like many women, I continued my professional life after marriage. I enjoyed my job at a company I joined right out of college. One morning, as I prepared for work, Bobby approached me with a stack of receipts and invoices, hinting at the upcoming tax season. He suggested, without meeting my eyes, that I should manage the finances for his shop, insisting that I was better suited for the task. We had met 4 years earlier when Bobby was a clerk at a restaurant I frequented. After a period of dating, we decided to get married. Now he runs his dream cafe, a venture I've supported from the start despite the growing challenges at home. As I headed out the door for work, my mother-in-law called after me, "Charlotte, let's have French tonight. Can you pick up the ingredients? And remember, Teresa and the kids are coming over this weekend. Make sure to prepare something they'll all enjoy." I hesitated, feeling the weight of her expectations, but managed a reluctant nod before leaving. When Bobby and I married, I had envisioned a quiet life for just the two of us. However, he was concerned about his mother living alone and insisted we move into the spacious family home he grew up in. My mother-in-law, reliant on a pension and preferring to dine out, wasn't keen on cooking or keeping the house tidy, which meant the home was quite disordered when we moved in. Bobby has always held the view that household duties are a woman's responsibility. Consequently, despite my full-time job, I find myself managing all the chores for the entire family. My workload only increases when my sister-in-law, Teresa, who has her own family, visits with her children. Her visits, though infrequent, bring more tasks and responsibilities for me. This morning, as I prepared for another day, the thought of Teresa's impending visit this weekend made me sigh. Oh, not again. The weekends, which I long to spend relaxing and unwinding from my busy work week, are instead filled with entertaining and cooking for additional guests. Amidst the weekend chaos, Teresa casually dropped a bombshell, announcing her divorce and her plans to move back into the family home with her children next month. Stunned, I managed to ask, "Are you serious? Do you have any issues with moving back so soon?" "No, Charlotte, I understand it's tough," she replied, confirming her plans to return as quickly as possible. While initially taken aback, I soon found a silver lining. Teresa had always been a homemaker. Perhaps her return could lessen my burden around the house. Although we were never particularly close, the prospect of having another pair of hands to help was somewhat relieving. I found myself looking forward to a bit more freedom in my daily routine, hopeful that Teresa's presence might ease the endless tasks that filled my days. My initial hopes quickly dissolved as I realized that Teresa, much like her mother, contributed nothing to the household chores. She spent her days lounging, watching TV, and snacking without lifting a finger to help around the house. It became apparent that her disregard for domestic duties had played a significant role in her recent divorce. Now I found myself burdened with even more responsibilities, including looking after her fussy children and preparing them for school. At work, the demands increased significantly as I took on a new project requiring overtime and early starts. This left little energy for household tasks, and the condition of our home deteriorated further. Coming back to a messy house each day was disheartening. Despite this, I was constantly bombarded with questions about dinner and complaints about my perceived slowness. Adding to my frustration, Teresa and my mother-in-law began making passive-aggressive remarks. "Charlotte, the laundry is piling up. Just because you work doesn't mean you can slack off," they would say, completely oblivious to the pressure I was under. Whenever I tried to defend myself, Teresa would quickly interject, accusing me of being bold for talking back to my mother-in-law. She criticized my choices, saying, "And you've been buying all the meals? That's not good for the kids. If you're home, can't you pitch in a bit?" Then Bobby would add his critiques. "You know, as a business owner, I'm providing for the family. You don't have to work, you're doing it out of selfishness. So, fulfill your wifely duties perfectly," he would insist as if his expectations were perfectly reasonable. Their words left me speechless and seething with anger. That night, I decided it was time to confront Bobby. "I'm swamped with work and neither your mom nor your sister is helping with the housework," I started. He shot me a surprised glare. "You're not bad-mouthing my mom and sister, are you?" "No, that's not it," I replied calmly, trying to keep the peace. "But I can't handle all the chores alone. Could you lend a hand?" Bobby's response was dismissive. "I'm busy running a business. You might not get it because you have an easy office job." The conversation ended there, but it was clear that something would have to change. I could no longer carry the entire burden alone. Bobby ended the argument with a dismissive comment about the challenges of running a business and reiterated the outdated idea that housework is solely a wife's responsibility. He then nonchalantly went to bed, leaving me seething with frustration. However, lying in bed that night, an idea sparked in my mind, a plan to simplify my overwhelming workload. I decided to invest in technology that could help ease my burdens. I quickly ordered several gadgets online, a new washer-dryer, a robotic vacuum cleaner, and several kitchen appliances featuring automatic cooking functions. I thought, if I couldn't get any help from my family, I could at least streamline my chores with some modern technology. A few days later, the delivery arrived, and as the workers brought in the new appliances, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law appeared, questioning my purchases. "You bought a new washer without consulting us? The old one still works," they exclaimed, visibly upset. "But it's outdated, and this new one will make doing laundry quicker and simpler," I explained, hoping to ease their concerns. As they spotted the cleaning robot and the kitchen gadgets, they called me into the living room. I found them seated comfortably on the sofa, with Bobby beside his mother, both looking rather smug. My mother-in-law's voice rose in anger. "What's all this? You've spent all our money on these lazy gadgets." I tried to justify my actions. I thought they would help with the housework and improve our efficiency. "People rely too much on machines these days," my sister-in-law chimed in dismissively. "Exactly, Charlotte. These are luxuries. The appliances we have are perfectly fine. You're just wasting money," she continued, with Bobby nodding in agreement. They accused me of trying to make my life easier as if that was a bad thing. "Can't you handle housework properly?" they criticized. I wanted to snap back at them, pointing out their hypocrisy, but I held my tongue. Perhaps my silence only fueled their frustration because after a tense pause, my mother-in-law delivered a harsh ultimatum. "If you can't handle the housework, you should just leave." Her words left me stunned, and as I looked back at her unyielding gaze, I felt the gravity of their disdain. "We don't need you. Bobby and I are fine without you. You always look tired and miserable. You're just a burden," my sister-in-law added harshly. Just then, perhaps realizing the harshness of their words, Bobby interjected, "Hold on, Mom and Teresa, you're being too harsh." But the damage was already done. Their words lingered in the air, painting a stark reality of my situation. When I sought Bobby's support, he avoided my gaze and coldly agreed with his family. "They're right. I don't need a wife who can't handle household tasks," he said, his words cutting deep. Bobby's smirk only widened as he continued, "I'm a business owner. I have the right to spend my money as I see fit. I don't need a wife who spends money to make her life easier." His next words stunned me further. "Besides, I've been getting along well with a young part-time worker. She's cute, unlike you. Pack your bags and leave." His mother and sister joined in, hurling insults and calling me a failure as a wife. My fists clenched in anger. After everything I had done for them, they still dared to treat me this way. Despite my boiling anger, I maintained my composure. "Fine, I'll leave." "Good. We'll be better off without you," my mother-in-law sneered. Silently, I stood up, walked over to the table, and placed down a pre-filled divorce application, a symbol of my final decision, born from utter exhaustion. "Bobby, let's get divorced," I declared as I slid the papers toward him. Resigned yet resolute, I watched him sign the documents. "Fine, I'll sign it. Don't regret it later," he retorted, his signature firm on the paper. I packed my bags and left for a weekly rental apartment that same day, not a single farewell bid in my direction. I submitted the divorce papers to City Hall and at the same time rented a condo. With my new living situation secured, I accepted a promotion at work that I had previously turned down due to my domestic responsibilities. Now a department head, I threw myself into my career with renewed vigor and determination, delighted to finally focus on my professional growth without hindrance. The overwhelming sense of relief was palpable, and about a week after my departure, my former mother-in-law began calling. But a year had passed since then, and I was too busy and fulfilled in my new life to entertain someone who had once deemed me worthless. A year after I had left and ignored her attempts to contact me, on a rare day off, she called again. This time, feeling ready to address whatever she might bring up, I answered hesitantly. "Hello? Charlotte, you finally answered? How could you ignore me for over a year?" she demanded. "What do you want? How have you been? Are you okay?" I responded curtly, not interested in pleasantries. "I'm doing great, working hard, and I'm in my place. I've been promoted and my salary has increased. I'm living comfortably," I informed her matter-of-factly. "Is that so? Would you consider returning?" Her voice carried a note of desperation. Cautiously, I asked, "Why now? What's going on?" "We're in trouble. We're running out of money," she confessed. I couldn't help but smirk as I replied, "So Bobby Cafe isn't even making $2,000 in profit, huh? And neither you nor your daughter have jobs? Well, that explains it." "Did you know about the cafe's troubles?" she probed. Of course I knew. Bobby Cafe was barely making $1,100 a month in profit. Since I handled the finances, I was well aware. Bobby, who acted like a big-shot business owner, probably had no clue, but I did. I was the one managing all the accounting and inventory, I explained. "Why didn't you say something? I had no idea you were managing a big company and contributing so much to our living expenses." Yes, I was putting in over $4,500 a month. That's how everyone was able to live. I had been supplementing the family income with my salary because I knew Bobby's shop wasn't making much. He probably realized he couldn't make ends meet without my income only after I left. "Please, Charlotte, come back," she pleaded. Ignoring her plea, I continued. "Bobby's shop is going under next month. Even the part-time girl left him. That makes sense. With such sloppy management, he can't keep a business running and he's too proud to do what needs to be done. No woman would want to be with a man like that," I chuckled, leaving my former mother-in-law speechless. "Can we wrap this up?" "I'm busy," I interjected as she hurriedly added, "Also, the house has been a mess since you left." "A mess, you say?" According to her, the house was in chaos. Since I had left, the condition of the house had rapidly declined. "No one's been doing any housework. It's cluttered, no one is cooking, so they had to buy food and they couldn't even afford a new washing machine. It would have been nice if you had left those appliances," she remarked with a hint of regret. "What do you mean, those lazy appliances?" And what's wrong with taking things that I paid for? I retorted, frustration edging my voice. I had never expected the house to deteriorate to such an extent just because I wasn't there to handle everything. Isn't it strange that 3 adults can't manage the housework? I asked, my irritation growing. She lowered her voice, sharing more of their troubles. Well, Bobby has been sulking at home all day since he found out his shop isn't making any money. Really, he said he could do whatever he wanted with his money because he's a business owner. And Teresa refuses to work, no matter how much I tell her. She doesn't do housework and even asks me for pocket money for herself and her kids. Really? Your daughter told me she didn't need me because she had you. I responded icily, my patience wearing thin. My former mother-in-law tried to sway me once more. Please, Charlotte, my pension isn't enough for the 3 of us anymore. I have no intention of returning to that house. Your children are quite dependent, aren't they? I pointed out, not masking my disdain. She fell silent, but as I was about to end the call, she persisted. Charlotte, we'll change. Please come back. Let's all live happily together again. Sure, happily with a worthless wife, I scoffed, cutting her off. She stumbled over her words, trying to mend the conversation. I apologize for what I said. We're family. Help us. We can't even afford the property taxes anymore. We'll have to sell the house, she pleaded desperately. I'm neither obligated nor inclined to assist you. Sort it out yourselves, I concluded firmly. Goodbye, from your worthless wife. Ignoring her desperate pleas, I ended the call and immediately blocked her number. As I sat back sipping coffee in my neat apartment, I couldn't help but chuckle at the turn of events. 5 months later, during a leisurely stroll, I passed by what used to be Bobby Cafe, only to find it had shut down and transformed into an empty storefront, a stark testament to his failed business. Further adding to the family's downturn, I learned from a former neighbor that their house had been sold. The 3 of them had moved into a cramped apartment nearby and had quickly become well known for the wrong reasons. Their frequent arguments and disturbances had made them a nuisance in the neighborhood, leading to a pileup of complaints. It was disheartening yet unsurprising that they hadn't seized the chance to take responsibility and work hard to maintain their own home, a pattern I had become all too familiar with during my time with them. As I walked past their former home, I felt a profound sense of detachment, having moved on completely from that chapter of my life. Since then, I've immersed myself fully in my career. Recently, a genuine and diligent colleague expressed his feelings for me, admiring my commitment to my work. We began dating with the intention of eventually marrying. I feel optimistic about this new relationship. It seems my next marriage is on the horizon, and this time I am truly looking forward to embracing happiness with someone who appreciates and shares my values.